This is Back Roads of Illinois, server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. We were glad you're here on a Monday. I am Cesar Delgado. I am your host of today's program. I'm going to be pretty excited to have a conversation with Rob Shaffer from El Paso, Illinois. Rob is the chairman of the Commodity Classic and director of the American Soybean Association. I'm going with Tyler Shau from agmarkets.net. We were bringing you lasted for the commodities markets with Right Now. Here's this week's episode of the Market Club podcast with Ben Brown from the University of Missouri at College of Agriculture and Food Policies, and Clayton Pope from Pope Commodities. We were talking about the planting intention report from USDA with Ben Brown. Then we were talking about the fundamentals Clayton Pope from Pope Commodities on the Markets Club podcast for Thursday. I'm going to be in the Weeds presentation from the University of Illinois Extension in Ottawa, Illinois for tomorrow with Dr. Hanger, a weed scientist from the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign campus. I will talk to Kayla Kiefer for the LaSalle County Farm Bureau about the top priority for LaSalle County Farm Bureau for this year. Otherwise, this is your rural news sponsored by AgriGold in central Illinois. Next week will be the planting intention report on March 31st at 11 Central Time for the outlook on acreage for corn and soybean. This results of more corn acres in the Midwest for this growing season. Benson Hill filed for bankruptcy. St. Louis-based it filed Chapter 13 to the ADM based upon their revenue from the company. Finally, the planting date is underway in central eastern Illinois, but since the weather is not capable to do some planting in the field, some farmers is going to be watching for the weather and the commodities markets, especially in the corn markets. Some farmers is already in the field from last week. That's your rural news for this afternoon. This is your commodities markets for today, sponsored by Kyle Bumstead from Allendale. The grains are mixed for this afternoon. May corn is up at 5 to 10 cents. July corn is up at 3 to 5 cents. December corn is up at 5 to 4 cents. May beans are down at 4 to 6 cents. July beans are down at 5 to 10 cents. Chicago wheat is down for today. Chicago May wheat is down at 8 to 6 cents. Chicago July wheat is down at 5 to 10 cents. Chicago September wheat is down at 3 to 5 cents. April cattle is up at 5 to 10 cents. June cattle is up at 3 to 6 cents. September cattle is up at 9 to 4 cents. May feeder is up at 5 to 10 cents. July feeder cattle is up at 5 to 10 cents. October feeder is up at 9 to 4 cents. April hogs is up at 3 to 6 cents. June hogs is up at 4 to 6 cents. This has been your commodities markets update for this afternoon. I'm going to be pretty excited to have a conversation with Rob Shaffer from El Paso, Illinois. Rob is the chairman of the Commodity Classic and director of the American Soybean Association. Welcome to the show, Rob. We are
Thanks for having me.
glad to have you on today.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Okay, Rob, how was the Commodity Classic in Denver? Could you tell us about that?
Yep, it was really good. We set a new record for farmer attendance. 5,225 farmers came this year. That's a record by plus 657 people. We had a record number of media, actually, we were up 168 media people, which is up by 10 media folks. And overall, we were 11,395, which is the second largest show ever. Last year in 24. In Houston, Texas was the largest. But we did a lot better than we thought, especially with the ag economy being the way it is. Okay. So, but yeah, we did really well. The weather was great. We had a lot of people. We actually had 1,800 people sign up in the last 6 days prior to the show. And what we've done some digging is we had a lot of people from Washington State, Oregon State, Montana, and mostly wheat growers that could actually get direct flights into Denver. And there's a lot of direct flights west of the Mississippi River to Denver, being a hub for United and Southwest. So we had a lot of people that looked at the weather and said, hey, the weather's going to be beautiful. So they decided to come to the show, which was great.
Did you subscribe about the feeling of the farmer in Denver for commodity prices are currently down?
Yeah. So when we were there, it seemed like we lost 20 cents a day or 10 cents a day the whole time we were in Denver because of the tariff talk from President Trump. But overall, the sentiment of farmers in general were good. I was thinking it might have been a little. I always try to judge, farmer sentiment since I get to talk to farmers. So ASA's got 23 different states are members of ASA. So I get to talk to a lot of them after being on the board for 8 years, and I've made a lot of friends all over the country. And it's interesting to pick their brains on, current segment, how they feel about agriculture today, last year, what do they think going forward? The good news is on the Trump side and tariffs. We went through this back in 18 and 19 and 20 under Trump 1.0. So most farmers aren't fearful. We would prefer to just have free trade instead of tariffs. But it is what it is, and we'll just have to play the game that we're dealt because a lot of farmers were voting for Trump and put him in office. So.
Are you watching about C? I score for right now in your farm?
Yeah. We do some carbon. I'm on a pilot program for Marquez Energy, where they're going to do CI scores for my farm based on the practices that I use: cover crops, no-till, strip-till on corn, and then nitrogen inhibitors on my nitrogen. So we're going through that process right now. They haven't finished it yet to give me my own CI score based on my farming practices and my dirt. But we're about 2 months away from that. And that way I can when Marquez calls up. So I deliver my grain. So Marquez Energy buys my grain from grown-up farmers, okay, or grainland farmers, okay, and then they can say mass balance. They know these like 10 producers raise X number of CI score, which then in turn they can turn around and do through mass balance and say, hey, I've got this amount of corn at this CI score, so I should get a better credit for it when it comes to a tax credit. And that's where all the logistics get involved. Okay. And I haven't quite finished that on my farm yet. We've got a third party doing it, a third party auditor that's doing it for us. And I'm just waiting for them to come back and tell me what that number is. So.
Can you tell our audience about your farm in El Paso, Illinois,
Yep.
and Woodford County?
Yep. So we farm in Woodford and McLean counties. I farm with my brother Emery. We're fourth generation farmers on both sides of our family. My mom's side of the family was from McLean County, and my dad's side of the family was from Woodford County. We still farm the farm that was great grandpa bought in 1920 and raised six kids, and him and grandma on. And then my brother married into a family farm that's been in the family since 1836, and the deed goes back to the railroad. And they're seventh generation farmers on that side of the family. So we're actually raising our fifth generation, hopefully my nephew, who's going to graduate as a senior this year from high school and then go play football down by St. Louis and then get a business degree and then hopefully come back to retire me out. So, yeah.
I mean, that's what I think. What is the hybrids for this year in El Paso?
So we plant DeKalb, Asgrow beans. We also plant Envision corn, which would be Growmark, and then also high soy beans. Plant a little Northrop King from Syngenta on beans. So that's what we'll be planting this year. We're about 50-50, both corn and soybeans each year. So we'll have 500 acres of corn and 500 acres of beans this year. But in McLean County, we're all beans this year just because we were all corn last year. So we'll be getting ready to take delivery of that, and then we're getting the planters ready to go now and the tillage equipment. When Mother Nature warms up a little bit, we'll start doing field work.
What is your final thoughts on this spring?
Hopefully we'll have a good spring and get it in timely. Last year, that's the other thing. We plant our soybeans first. So hopefully we can get a stretch around tax day, like April 15th, is to start planting beans. That's our goal every year, is to start by April 15th. And then do all our beans first and then go right into corn. And it's worked out for us the last 5 or 6 years. Earlier planted beans yield better. We've got trials for both Illinois soybean and also on our farms and neighbors' farms that a lot of guys have switched to planting beans. My dad would have never done that back when my dad was farming. He'd always want to get his corn in first and then beans. But we've learned through a lot of trials and research that the earlier planted beans yield better. So that's our goal. So that'd be safe, of course.
Was the yield for last year?
We averaged right at 75 bushel across every acre on beans, and on corn we averaged 245 across every acre. So, which we've got some good dirt and bad dirt, so that pulls the average down a little bit. But the bad dirt was bought by my family in by my grandpa on my mom's side, 1887. So.
Thanks, Rob. I enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah. Appreciate it, sir. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
This is Rob Shaffer from the American Soybean Association and the Commodities Classic on Back Roads of Illinois. I'm going with Tyler Shau from agmarkets.net. We were bringing you last for the commodities markets with Right Now. Here's Tyler. How is the beans futures for this morning session?
Today beans were just kind of a muted response. Ended up closing down 2.5 cents in May. November beans were down about a penny and a quarter. Wasn't a lot of news on the soybean front. Just kind of same with corn. Not a lot of news out there. So markets really didn't move much. I think there's just a lot of anticipation of next Monday and the prospective plantings report that we'll get on Monday, as well as quarterly grain stocks report, and then Wednesday, April 2nd is kind of the tariff two-step day where we figure out what type of reciprocal tariffs the Trump administration is leaning towards for some of the countries that imposed tariffs against the U.S.
How is the technical side for right now?
I wouldn't really say that the technicals don't look great. We're in certainly a downtrend over the last month. We've got all the major moving averages 10, 20, 50, 100, and 200 day above us. That's going to act as pretty stiff resistance. But if you look at November beans in particular, it's been really tough to punch much below this $10 mark. So I would argue as long as $10 can kind of hold, we can continue to close above $10. There's going to be some upside potential there. It's really, like I said, it's going to come down to what the planting or prospective planting report shows us as far as how few number of acres producers are looking at. And then I think also, like I mentioned before, the tariff situation is going to kind of drive this as we try to figure out what countries are going to be buying beans from the U.S. and if they're going to impose any taxes against us.
Let's begin with our conversation about updating from the Brazilian crop production for right now. What is the final push for their harvest season in Brazil?
Brazilian harvest is in the final quarter. They've been keeping kind of on pace. I would say you're going to see plenty of beans available for the next few months. So we're probably not going to see a lot of soybean business get done. In fact, I would guess you're not going to see much at all. So, their planting pace is on track. I think it's slightly ahead of average. No real, hiccups there. No real story catching anyone off guard in the bean market as of right now.
What is the trends for their yields?
I'm not even going to lie. I have not. As far as an actual number, I haven't done the conversions. We deal with bushels per acre. They deal with sacks per hectare. There is a conversion that can be done. I've not done it, and it's not something that I probably should pay closer attention to it. I guess the reason I don't, Caesar, is most of my producers, we are sold out on old crop soybeans. So we live up in North Dakota, and the majority of our soybeans go west to the PNW. And once the Brazilian crop is available, our exports of soybeans kind of die off and our basis really falls apart. So we're always in the camp that we have all of our old crop beans sold by Jan, Feb, and if, early March by the latest. So the total production doesn't matter all that much for us right now. What's going to matter now is what the weather does for the American growing season, or the North American growing season as we move forward.
Yeah, that's true. We were talking about the Brazilian crop production for right now. However, what is your position on next week with the planting intention report?
So we actually released a press release today giving out our official acreage estimates. We're probably on the high side. I haven't seen the, culmination or the cumulative numbers where Reuters and Bloomberg put together kind of what the average estimate or the range of analysts. I can just kind of speak to where we're at. The USDA Outlook Forum had corn pegged at 94 million acres. That's quite a bit higher than the actual 90.59 planted last year. Our estimate for corn is at 95.39. So we're quite a bit above the Outlook Forum, another almost 1.5 million acres. Soybeans, we've got pegged at 82.75 million acres. So that's off from the USDA's outlook for them at 84. And one of the reasons is just pure economics. Any budget you run on whether it's corn, soybeans, it's really tough to get anywhere near penciling a profit right now on soybeans, where most guys can still kind of pencil in a corn using their APH. And the other one to remember is it's generally a lot easier. I shouldn't say a lot, but it is easier to bushel your way out of a hole on corn versus soybeans. So what I mean by that, if you've got a 200 bushel APH on corn, good weather, good genetics, good management practices, you can squeeze an extra 20 bushel an acre out of that field. Whereas beans, it's really hard to squeeze additional production out of. So, a lot of guys kind of lean towards corn anyways. You give them that type of economic advantage, and we just think we're going to see heavy corn acres. You come up into the northern plains where I'm at, you get out in the west, and guys have just kind of thrown the towel in on planting beans. They've pretty well maxed yields out here, whereas they're continuing to improve yield on corn. So we know there'll be fewer acres. In fact, a lot of the seed sales people we talk to, especially in western North Dakota, say they haven't sold hardly any units of soybeans this year. And you hear that as you move all the way across the corn belt, from seed dealers, a real lack of demand for soybean seed and a lack of supply, actually in some cases running out of certain genetics that producers would like to get their hands on when it comes to corn. Throw in the issues with cotton. Cotton's got pretty poor prices right now, and there's a lot of producers in the Delta looking to do something different. Same deal. If you're in the Delta and you don't want to plant cotton, you don't want to plant soybeans, well, the next logical choice is going to plant corn. So just kind of think all that thrown together, you're going to see a pretty big acre number on corn and a lower number on soybeans than what we saw last year and even what the USDA put out just a month ago. On wheat, we've got that pegged at 47.82. That's slightly above the outlook for them and above last year's wheat acreage. We use the winter wheat numbers, and then we kind of feel we're going to see a lot of those bean acres up in the north that guys are moving away from. Some will go to corn, but a lot of it's going to move to wheat. Prices aren't that great there either, but kind of the same story. A lot of guys have been able to bushel their way out of a hole or bushel their way into some profitability on wheat over the last few years. Set up right now to be kind of a dry year. If you're going to grow something in the drought, wheat tends to do better than corn up in this country. So, and it's, for the most part, a lower cost input. So kind of feel like we'll see those acres kind of shake out in that neck of the woods.
How was your survey by your clients or farmers, whatever you are doing it with them? How was it, Tyler?
We use JSA, John Stewart and Associates, kind of our partner company. They do a survey amongst producers, brokers, and elevators from around the country. So it was, it's not a super scientific survey. It's mostly kind of catching the feel of what a lot of the people out in the country are looking at, what they're hearing, compiling all that. The other thing we've got, Matt Bennett speaks all over the country. He's been speaking for the last 3 months on a pretty heavy circuit. Every meeting he goes to, he polls his audience, and the overwhelming response is always more corn acres. So it's not a scientific strategy. It comes back to us kind of taking all the information we know of and kind of making our own interpretations of it. And as a reminder, I do like to point out, number one, the USDA operates off a survey when they get their prospective planting reports, and producers aren't all that great at filling out surveys. So, even once we get the data, I'm not saying it's a nothing or we shouldn't pay attention to it. Market will trade it, but at the end of the day, we do know producers are not good at filling out and returning surveys.
It is not rocket science, right? Tyler, ha, ha, ha.
No, it is not. It is not rocket science.
Finally, What is the technical aspects on soybean futures for this week?
I think you just got to watch if some of these recent lows, on November beans, that $10 mark is going to be really important if we could hang in there. Kind of the same on old crop beans in May. We've punched down below 10 a couple times. We've always seemed to be able to get back and close right at it or near it or slightly above it. So I think holding that $10 mark is going to be really important on beans if we can, knowing what we know as far as expectations of lower acres on that report next week. That'll be important to monitor. But yeah, if we can't hold $10 in a meaningful way, I think it's something we need to be a little bit concerned about, especially technically as we move forward.
Thanks to Rob Shaffer from American Soybean Association and Tyler Shau from agmarkets.net. This has been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. You have a good day.